we do not, when we start investigations, begin with an access to information application. Yes, you do it, but you don't count on it. And journalists today have to find other ways to get their story. Actually, I think it was you who just back in the green room said, we came from a system of brown envelopes where you relied on people who knew the truth and needed help. They had no way. They were afraid as whistleblowers they'd get in trouble, and you'd get a brown envelope under your door. I'm sure you've received many of them. I know I have. Well, we were saying we're going back to that in a big way because we can't get the information through legitimate sources. So I do think that journalists think first about other ways and then later about the application. It's a bit of a lottery. And I would like to make this one point. The result of that constructively is that we don't have access to information. But we have a law in the books that says we are entitled under specific circumstances to receive this information. If those requests are being thwarted, the constructive result is there is no system. And I think that we need to think in terms not so much of, is it going to work or is it not, but we need as Canadians to ask ourselves, does the information belong to the Conservative government or the Liberal government or the NDP now, or does it belong to us? And if it and journalists, we only want it so we can tell you. We need to decide if we want access to that information, and if we do, we need to face the fact we don't currently have it. What are we going to do about it?
Paula, give us maybe some more of your experience in trying to get that. What are the areas that you would think that would be easy to get that you just hit a wall on?
I don't know. I never asked for easy stuff. But I will tell you something interesting. It's not just the access to information applications. This is a much broader systemic problem. So, for example, I work for a show called W5, and we are in the business. Most of our stories come from Canadians who contact us and say, I've lost my home, or I've lost my pension, or my child is sick and I don't know why, and I can't get any information from the hospital or the government. We then turn to the government agencies and try to find out what's going on. Applications for information, we'll file them, but we won't count on them. Then we'll try and speak directly to the politicians. We are actually very polite, you might be surprised. And we go through all the hoops and we follow the rules. First thing, no one wants to talk to you. They're only willing to tell you what they want to tell you. It's very difficult to get answers. So then you look any day to Scrum on Parliament Hill. Much of the government won't even talk to journalists anymore. On this most recent campaign, they were limited to a tiny number of questions each day. This is a Canadian democracy. We have a free press, and yet veteran political reporters, every day we're sitting down. They were only allowed 4 or 5 questions, depending on the mood of the politician. They had to figure out who got to work that day. It's a free press, but it's not free. And then you try to talk to a minister. Well, they don't want to talk to you. They don't want to answer, not my questions, but the questions that I put on behalf of the citizens. More than times than not recently, and there's even more of an increase in it, I'm being met with this response from the government. We'd love to talk to you about Johnny's broken house, broken car, broken body, broken tax form, but we can't because of the privacy of Johnny. And I say, but Johnny's sitting with me right here, and I actually do this. I take signed affidavits in with me and say, look, Johnny wants you to talk to me. He wants you to give me his file. He would like his file. No, we are protecting the privacy of Johnny. So the access to information is far more substantial than just this. And I hope there's been a little flurry of, I'd love to hear what you think about this. Some people are saying, well, maybe now that Stephen Harper has a majority, he'll relax. If there's nothing to hide, hide nothing, right? Is it going to get better?
Oh my God. No, you're dreaming in Technicolor if you think this government is going to suddenly be forthcoming with information. I mean, Canadians rewarded this government with a majority for undermining one of our key institutions, which was Parliament. They were found in contempt of Parliament. That's why we had an election. And the response from Canadians was, let's give them a majority. So, FOI is another pillar of our democracy. I just don't see this government responding. I mean, stepping up to the plate and improving the system. Plus, leadership means everything in a government, and the leadership of this government is very tightly, it controls information tightly. That's just not going to change. A majority isn't going to change that. I mean, I'm sure the argument in those circles is that we have a majority because we control information tightly. So I don't really see, people say, oh, well, they'll relax. Well, maybe they'll relax, but they're not going to change the system. I mean, the system worked for them, really. So, I think the change has to come from without. I think the courts are one answer. I think more media organizations have to be prepared to spend the money to go to court. The courts have been good friends of FOI, good friends of access to information. You just heard Mr. Reed's record. Well, he was commissioner, 48 of 49 cases won. So the courts are ruling overwhelmingly in favor of open access to information. And so I think one of the ways forward is for all of our media groups to open up their wallets and start fighting in the courts.
John, you have a headline there.
This is from the Ottawa Metro News. It's a picture of John Baird. His comment is, Baird brushes off transparency concerns, quote, not the priority of the Canadian public. And the story is about the fact that the supporters at the party, the election night party, were told not to talk to the press. So that it not only extends to the cabinet, to the caucus,
Hold on, John.
but also...
You're muffing your punchline there. This is fantastic. What a great catch. I didn't even see this. And John is so right. This is what they were told not to talk about. A man was quoted as saying, I think this goes to the brilliance of Stephen Harper, John Baird, Jason Kenney, and Scott Reed, one of them said, a supporter. But when he learned that the media wasn't supposed to be talking to him, he asked that his name, which he'd given earlier, not be used. The Prime Minister is brilliant. If you can't own up to that statement, I don't know what you can own up to.
I want to ask as well, we're talking mostly about the federal government, but in the case of the Prime Minister's agenda, which is now before the courts, I mean, we're seeing this play out in a news story in the city of Toronto right now where the mayor is not releasing his agenda. It's a blank that nobody knows what he's doing, who he's meeting with, and I think the clip was, well, private citizens are embarrassed if the news media knows their name, and this is not solely a federal government issue. We have other levels of government where it becomes just as hard to get information, do we not?
No, I think the problem is that in information, federal government leads. And so when the system breaks down in Ottawa, it also tends to break down in the provinces and in the municipalities. I think this is what you're seeing with the Mayor of Toronto.
And again, if we can go back to the idea of what is private in a minister's office or the Prime Minister's office, well, what does that mean? I mean, given how much these offices are also politicized, Lawrence Martin has written about that. What does that mean in terms of our ability to even get accountability on decisions?
Well, remember that only government documents are subject to the Access to Information Act. So it means that anything doing with politics is out, your personal life is out, election material is out, only things that deal with the government of Canada are included. So the argument that my privacy is being violated, the Act already provides that kind of protection. So you don't have to tell the general public when your doctor's appointment is or when you're meeting your wife or whatever it happens to be. That's all automatically out. None of your private material goes through. So the real question we're talking about is government documents, the expenditure of taxpayers' money, the policy discussions that go on, the type of thing that government documents habitually have. That's what's covered by the Act. So don't let anybody tell you that my privacy is being interfered with if I give you my agenda. It's not. It's what you do in the position you hold. And when you hold a position like mayor or prime minister, you are not a private citizen from that point of view.